Welcome, everybody. This is Radio Free Nintendo, episode 986. It is July 30th, 2026, the last episode of July 2026. It has been a wild month. I am your host again this week, John Lindemann. James is again not with us. He is out there living his best life. God bless him and his people. But I have with me, as always, Guillaume Veillette.
Hello, hello.
And Greg Leahy.
Ahoy, hoy, everyone.
Yeah. So I'm assuming James will return next week. So all of you James Jones fans out there, do not despair. James will be back next week.
I'm sure with an episode that revolves around him being required to play a Sonic game, we can certainly count on his presence. There's no way.
Absolutely, yes. That is a good reminder, Greg. I'm assuming we are going to do the retroactive next week. Is that? I mean, I know we're not contractually obligated.
Sure,
but
yeah. I know James' target is early August for it, so potentially, but of course it is actually subject to circumstances. But I've been making progress on my going back to it. I did confirm an old save file that did actually have all the Chaos Emeralds on there. So I did do that at one point, but whether I'll be doing it this time is another matter.
Yeah, I haven't played it a little bit. I need to go back to it, though. So that'll happen maybe next week. Most likely, I would say next week, if not the week after. So keep on playing that, Sonic Mania for retroactive. And we will start off with, let's start off with Greg. What do you got, Greg, for new business?
Sure, yeah. So I've been able to keep making progress with Splatoon Raid as much in the sort of manner that I expected and kind of hoped for last week in terms of, like I said, it's a pretty nice kind of casual play game, even though being as it is based on Salmon Run, it can get extremely crazy at times. Like I said, when you get into that sort of mode where the boss salmonid spawning just kind of reach a certain threshold where you haven't quite kind of killed them quickly enough as they spawn, and it gets overwhelming. Like it can be intense. It's not like some just like chill out game. It's not Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, that's for sure. But equally, it is one of these things because it's very much a gear grind kind of game, right? Yeah, I mean for me, it kind of liken it to some degree. Obviously, there's quite a lot of differences to like a Monster Hunter kind of experience, right? In terms of you've got this base, you set off on a quest essentially, you come back with better stuff, and then you kind of tinker around with that stuff and create new kind of loadouts and things that you like. Especially you've got these sort of three different types of ink tanks that kind of correspond to different types of the secondary weapons. So like normally in playing in Salmon Run in Splatoon, right, your secondary weapon is just a grenade, right? And some of the salmonids are built around using that grenade. So it's like, you've got the shark like one that comes out of the ink and you've got to throw the grenade in its mouth to kill it, or you've got the one that's like got the kind of rocket launcher things attached to it, these big like sort of bins that open up and you've got to get the grenade in with that. So you don't really have that anymore. What you've got instead is quite a array of options, and you can craft more of them, of like different things. And these kind of general types of tanks that you've got speed, power, and I think tactical is the other one. They give you different kinds of secondary weapons. And one of the cool things that I've kind of gone through this week is what they call sampler dungeons, right? So in this case, what they do is it give you something that's akin to like a shrine in, a Zelda game, basically, built around one thing, which is often one of the secondary weapons that you can equip if you're using the right kind of tank. And if you've crafted it in the first place. And so it's kind of it's trying to do two things at once, as the name kind of implies, right? It's like, it's meant to be an enjoyable kind of somewhat, some of them are a little bit more puzzly than others. Never going to be like that puzzle driven. But you know, what it's trying to do is teach you about that this thing exists, this is what it can do. A lot of the time it's taking away absolutely everything else from you. So that is not contingent on the gear grind at all. You know, it's just like, hey, here's this thing in a vacuum that shows you what this thing can do. This is a secondary weapon. Maybe you might want to mess around with that, to craft it or craft it augments for it and stuff. Like I said, there's loads of little currencies and crafting and things that you can do, which, you know, to a fair degree, you may not absolutely have to, just kind of going through playing the main levels. But first of all, those little sampler dungeons are kind of fun little shrine style challenges in themselves. And also, you know, it could give you ideas for like different tactics for certain things. If you're presented with situations where it's like, okay, I really could use with killing these things that extra bit faster. That's not just about, okay, well, I've made the damage number go up or whatever. So, you know, like I just had one where I was stuck on for a little bit. Not many things have been put up like huge resistance at this point, but one of them was like an optional kind of challenge where like there's these salmonid things, like you get some of the optional challenges. It's like, it's hardly incredibly imaginative level design where it's just like, okay, we've got one type of boss salmonid and we're just going to keep spawning it. And you have to be able to kill them fast enough to cope with it that you can actually get enough of the eggs they leave behind before the timer runs out, right? Nothing terribly clever about that from a design point of view in a lot of ways, but it does make you think about, okay, what is the most efficient way to kill these things so that I can actually stay ahead of the timer. And I had a thing where it's like, I'd done a sampler dungeon where you've got this kind of a secondary weapon that's like a zip line thing, you know, kind of shoot out a line of ink and then you can, you know, get up to a high platform or something like that. And of course, with that, this particular boss that I was dealing with, it's the one where they sort of spawn these like little towers that stick in the ground, and then there's like a little sort of flock of salmonids flying around the top of it, right? So it's like, okay, in this case I can latch onto the top straight away rather than just inking it and then doing the kind of weird little jump that you can do up the side of it once you've put your ink on it. That'll be faster, you know, and then I'll actually be able to kill them quick enough to do it, and eventually, you know, that paid dividends. So these are the kinds of things that you can discover, but at the same time, whatever you're doing, you're always kind of leveling up, you're always getting more stuff. So even if, you know, I'm playing it kind of casually and I'm messing stuff up, you know, it's all kind of contributing to something, you know, to the character getting better, to having better gear. Whereas, you know, you distinguish that with what I talked about playing Mina the Hollower, where it's, you know, quite the opposite, right? You're losing stuff like permanently at times if you're inattentive for a moment. So yeah, it's, you know, it continue to fill that kind of gap that I've been looking for. And I think, you know, along with those sampler dungeons, adding something a little bit different, you know, that isn't based on the grind, that's more specific. And then the kind of other different types of levels, like you got the ones that are the most similar to like existing single player Splatoon, where I talked about last week, where you've got, you know, some minor platforming challenges and maybe a little bit of minor possibility for exploration, where you can find some optional things like little scrolls that are about, like, you know, backstory or whatever. And then you with that, you have like kind of isolated little pockets of Salmon Run skirmish, and then you've got the dungeons, which are the more full-on, you know, version where you've really got to be on your game. And then you've got bosses, you know, really big encounters, beefed up versions of existing, you know, boss salmonids, or, you know, some of these that feel a bit more novel, that can be pretty cool. I guess the main thing that for me so far is that it's all been pretty familiar, right? It's like, I don't know whether there's anything that novel going on here outright. You know, it is just like kind of mixing together all these elements that have existed in Splatoon before, but just in a somewhat different way. And I guess, just that persistent character growth that I already mentioned last week is really probably, the most unique element of it. But, I guess I feel like I'm making, pretty decent progress. I feel like I'm not necessarily too terribly far from, like, the kind of, at least, the pre-credits kind of end game. I don't know how sometimes obviously things could go quite a bit beyond that in terms of how many additional challenges they make. And to this point, I feel it's been a fairly gentle ramp up. We'll see how much it goes. Hopefully, it can maybe, for that final run in, like offer, a bit of extra resistance. But, I mean, I feel like it's all, really kind of nicely executed. It's just not like kind of, I guess, if you've just played around with single-player Splatoon stuff before and thought, I would like them to do more with this, like in terms of substantially, it kind of does and it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, they are stringing together a major kind of campaign out of this on a level that I guess they haven't before. But equally, it doesn't feel like it's like, okay, no, we're really doing like completely different kind of stuff design-wise than what we've done before. So, hard to say exactly, like, for recommendations for people based on, how they've interacted with single-player stuff in Splatoon before. But I've always kind of enjoyed, like, the, stuff like the Octo expansion and, the side order with 3 and stuff. So I felt pretty safe, when I got it, and I'm a bit disappointed to this point.
So how is the difficulty curve in it? Like, is there any, like, spikes or anything like that, or is it generally pretty smooth?
Yeah, like I said, I haven't had anything running into it too much so far, but, I've kind of, I've been pretty thorough in terms of doing optional stuff, right? And it's always giving you the kind of, like, every, like, as you kind of clearing stuff on the map, each thing will say the kind of recommended level, right? So, so I've definitely done some things where I've been a few levels below, or at least tried them out and see how that's gone. But because I've kind of done a lot of the stuff as I've, rather than like letting any kind of backlog build up of like more optional things, I've been generally doing all the stuff that's available as it comes up. You sort of, the setting of the game, you've just got these islands in a spiral pattern, right? And you're just working your way into the centre of the spiral, and you just gradually unlock more of it, right, as you go further in. And so, like I said, clearing all those different things as you go, it's not felt yet like it's like, okay, this thing is going to kick your ass for a while before you actually grind enough to be able to kind of meet it where it is. I guess, if you weren't so jazzed about being relatively thorough with that, maybe you'd fall behind the curve more so. I don't know, but to this point it feels like it's balanced out, and this is on the kind of middle difficulty, because there is that to consider as well. I didn't go for the advanced one from the beginning, but on the middle difficulty it's kind of felt like a smooth ramp up without anything feeling like it's off the map. But as we get towards the end, I'm assuming that there might be a little bit more of that, okay, have you done your homework kind of attitude towards it, maybe at that point.
Like, how far through it are you?
I think probably somewhere around 70%-ish. Like I said, I'm just kind of I'm level 30 for whatever that's worth. Maybe for people who have listening who have finished it, that contextualise it for them how far along I am. And like I said, just in terms of how close am I to getting into the centre of that spiral, it feels like I'm not too far away. But like I said, there'd probably be some post game beyond that, based on the way things tend to be kind of apportioned these days, with that kind of content.
Like, I just think Nintendo probably wanted this to be do you think they positioned this as kind of a gateway into Splatoon? Like, do you think it's actually good for that if you've never played Splatoon before?
That is an interesting question, isn't it? In terms of, do you feel like this is for people who, maybe the world of Splatoon, as you might appeal to them like on an aesthetic level or something, but
Yeah.
Because it's just been essentially, not exclusively, but it's been leveraged so much on multiplayer, and some people, that's just not what they're interested in, that it's like, oh, well, now there's something that's more for you, right, a gateway into this kind of gameplay and the aesthetics and everything that you might be kind of interested in. And then you think perhaps, you know, that if they enjoy it, somehow you can migrate them into the multiplayer worlds, perhaps in Splatoon 4, or, you know, theoretically you could go back to one of the earlier ones. Is that plausible? I don't know. On the other hand, is it meant to be more for like people, you know, who have played Splatoon already and are just like, yeah, I like the kind of single player offerings, but they're usually kind of modest in scale and scope, so I just want something that's more. I guess a lot of it comes down to, you know, the timing, I think, you know, in terms of early on in the life of a new console, you're looking for things that are deliverable in scope, to populate that software lineup in the early phase of it, that isn't just going to kind of just balloon, and, you know, isn't going to be something you've got to keep updating and maintaining for, you know, years on end, which you're presumably, you know, that will be the case when Splatoon 4, you know, inevitably does get here. So yeah, I think, yeah, there's presumably some sort of intention there about, you know, broadening the appeal of the series, but also about the more sort of narrow imperative of just like, we've got, you know, a certain amount of name ID series, and we need them to be here on the system within the first so many months, but it can't be like the full on, like, for, you know, for all of them all at once, right? So you've got to kind of find a way to get it there within a reasonable time frame. And I guess this was it in this case, focus on single player and, you know, this kind of gear grind looter shooter thing.
Yeah, and it makes sense from the standpoint of, it sounds like they've been able to kind of take all of the, probably a lot of the assets that they had for the Splatoon games, and just kind of, here's kind of a rearrangement of those with a different type of gameplay. Very much so. That's it. I mean, like I said, if you're very familiar with Salmon Run, like I said, just a lot of the enemies, like I said, there's variations because there are differences, as I spoke about, with the secondary weapons and stuff. Some of them have been a little bit retooled, but it's familiar stuff. It's stuff, you know, and like I said, that, to me, in some ways, is, you know, part of the enjoyment of it, is like, okay, you know, I've got these tactics and experience that are built up from playing Salmon Run online over the years now. I'm applying them in a different kind of setting. So you can feel confident you're going to enjoy it, you know, before you buy it. And then, you know, and I have been enjoying it. But on the other hand, it probably does, like, lessen its impact a little bit. Like, it would be interesting experiencing this through the eyes of someone who had never played any of the Salmon Run stuff, like how they perceive it, you know, differently, you know, than I would have done. Yeah. It'd be cool too if maybe in the next multiplayer game they allow you to, you know, they unlock certain things for your progress in Splatoon Raiders. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, well, I mean, some sort of, read the save data and all that. I guess that's the, anytime you're building this so much around, and like I said, this is the relatively sort of unique thing about it, is the fact that, you know, you've got this sort of like really, I mean, like, you can kind of grind in regular Splatoon for certain buffs, like on your, you know, to get certain things on the you know, the gear there, but it's not linear and not nearly as granular as what you're dealing with here. So yeah, it would be, I guess it would feel like a reward, and people put a lot of time into making some, you know, very fearsome kind of loadout in this particular case. If you could take it and into some sort of presumably limited use, like siloed thing in the next Splatoon, it would probably, you know, feel like some sort of reward there. But at least something, you know, whether it's like, I mean, more likely it's just like, oh, you've got, you know, like almost like an amiibo type thing, right? It's like, oh, you've got save data from the, oh, well, you can have this particular costume, you know, you've got things like that in Splatoon Raiders, right? Where it's like, I think if you've got a regular, like a pre-existing Splatoon amiibo, rather than the ones that are new for this game, it's like it unlocks the costume that you would normally wear if you were doing Salmon Run in one of the old games, right? So that's the kind of gag there. So I guess
turnabout's fair play, it would be, oh, you've got like a unique Splatoon Raiders type costume to go and play with in regular Splatoon. I would hope at least something like that, but it'd be nice if it was a bit more substantial, really.
Yep. Cool. You got anything else, Greg?
No, that's pretty much it for me. Like, I've been chipping away at Sonic Mania, chipping away at Rhythm Tengoku, but again, it's harder to kind of get sustained period in, and it seems like there's a reasonable amount to it for that kind of game. So yeah, it's going to be what I call a Dufresne job, where you chip away at it very gradually at night.
All right. I respect getting a Shawshank Redemption reference in there. It's very well
for
done.
The teenagers again.
Yeah, for the teenagers. Guy, what do you got?
Yeah, so I struggle to I still don't want to start a long game after I accidentally started the longest fucking game with 100 Line Academy.
Yep.
Surely I played it for at least 7-8 months. I feel like when I started it was still 2025. So, anyway, so I'm just, I don't want to start really anything big. And so I thought that was a great time to pick up maybe something really small that I finish it or don't finish it, whatever. It's not going to take long, and it's not months of homework. So I've picked up Milano's Odd Job Collection, which is an interesting game that came out on the PlayStation 1 in 1999 by Westone, or West One. I still don't know how that's pronounced. And it's a game that's published today by Exceed. I think it was originally published by Marvelous. I saw a lot of familiar companies in the opening CG, PS1 era, 1999.
Aren't they opening. Kind of sort of the same company, Marvelous and Exceed?
Oh, you're asking me a good question.
They're very similar. I remember we've had this discussion before. I think they're one bought out the other, or one is publishing the other, or something. It's weird.
Okay.
Anyways, go on.
It's interesting. And so this game was Japan only for 25 years, and then a group of fan translators gave us apparently a really, really good fan translation, and this is what Exceed is publishing today. So from what I could gather online from articles I saw, explaining this release, this group really did a really good job, and it's a really nice thing that their work is being recognized this way and is getting published. This is a mini game collection. There's not that much to it, but it does have really stellar sprite animation. Westone, I don't think that they were long for this world after this game, but they've always had really good sprites and animation whenever at the time, everything that they release, it's always gorgeous and colorful, and this game is no exception. And you play as Milano, a little girl who, in the anime opening cutscene, learns that her mom is going to be in the hospital for about 40 days. The dad is very cheerily explaining this, and oh, don't stress out. We'll send you over to your uncle's place for the next 40 days. And so you go over there, and turns out your uncle is on vacation, and he's pinned a note on the door saying hey, take care of the house while I'm on vacation. So that's what you're going to be doing. Basically, from then on, Milano's oh, that's awesome. That means I'm a grown up. And so she's going to be picking up part-time jobs. And, there are 40 in-game days. So you do one, mini game a day. And then in the evening, you can buy stuff from a catalog, some furniture for your uncle's house, I guess. But yeah, to spruce up the place for yourself. And there's also things that you can do to improve 3 stats. Milano's skill, mood and energy. If you improve her energy, you get more time within the mini games. If you improve her mood, that will unlock new mini games. There are 8 in total, but you start out with access to maybe like 3 or 4. And it's kind of dependent on several things. Like they're not always all open all the time. So sometimes you'll just have a choice between 2 of them. But I guess if you increase her mood, then you'll have, like a bigger base from which to choose from. And her skill, that will unlock like the harder difficulties in the mini games. And, the harder the difficulty, the more money you can gain from doing those mini games. I've only really just like scratched the surface. I'm only like 3 or 4 in-game days in it. I started it today, so I was really like scrambling for new business. But it seems nice so far. As I said, like the sprite work is gorgeous. It's like we're playing Sonic Mania right now, and like one of the things I'm planning to say about Sonic Mania next week, spoiler alert, is that the developers are really showing off, like right from the start, showing off their animation skills, right? Like it's animation that was not seen or possible probably on the Genesis cart. Well, here, this is a PlayStation 1 game. It's really showing me like what was possible with the size of a PlayStation CD, but it was possible also to release on the PlayStation that you could perhaps not release on an expensive to make N64 cart. So like I'm really enjoying this game so far, mostly as like, oh, okay, so like this is what I missed out on. This is what it was like back then. I like going back and like discovering these like hidden gems that we really didn't have much of a chance to discover over here because they weren't translated. The game is voiced. To be serious for a second, it would in no way be improved by Shatner. And yeah, like the mini games themselves so far, I haven't tried a whole lot, but they're all bizarre. Well, that's not true. What's bizarre is the world that she lives in. You are in Zucchini Town, after all. There's nothing especially zucchini-ish about the town, but it's a funny name.
Whatever zucchini-ish would be.
I have no idea.
Zucchinis, I guess.
There are creatures. So there is like a farm mini game where you can go milk some creatures, but these creatures are, as far as I can tell, flying cows. And so the mini game is that there's like this thing, like basically like maybe the equivalent of a fox running after a chicken or something. I don't know. They're going around in circles. And this is all 2D, but you can see them like in the background when they're, going to come again and like they're going to surface where you are in the foreground. And yeah, like you're moving to the right and, the camera's spinning. Like it's pseudo fake 3D, a little bit like Klonoa, anyway, it's faking 3D. And you have these flying cows and all you see is like their udders basically in the sky. Mm-hmm. And so you have to jump at them, press down and then mash, Y and A? Is that, I've been playing some Xbox lately, so I'm not sure anymore. Anyway, the left and right buttons on the controller, Y and A, yeah. So you mash them, yeah, as you're holding down. If the chicken and fox are coming towards you, you need to let go of down because otherwise they're going to send you flying. They're going to collide with you and send you flying. So like you have to be fast, working the others, until you milk the flying cow, and then you go to the next one.
Sounds absurd.
Yeah, so you've got to collect a certain, amount of milk within the time limit. If you fail, then you get no money. But if you finish in time, you get like base pay plus like extra pay for every seconds that you have extra left over. Another mini job is just like serving food at a fast food place. The inhabitants, the people, your clients doesn't look human. I don't know what they are. But yeah, and like the job is very simple. You just go to them, you press A, you can see what their what they want their order. It can be like a double Big Mac or something, or like an egg McMuffin. I'm sorry for using these McDonald's terms, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. Just a standard cheeseburger, or I think a hot dog. And then like you've got drinks, you've got fries, and usually like at the very base level, they're only going to order 2 things, and there's only going to be 1 till open. So it was very kind of simple and easy at first. And what's the other one that I played? Oh yeah, like a cake, a bakery, basically, where you're supposed to make cake, and that plays like a tile matching game, like a almost like Tetris Attack, but much more simple. I'm not even sure. Like anyway, like Yoshi's Cookie, something like that. It's not terribly complicated. So I've managed to upgrade her stats by cooking myself meals and going to bed, whatever. I haven't been able to increase her skill yet, so I'm still trying to figure out how to do that. But yeah, like in the evening, you've got different options. You can make yourself a meal, make yourself like tea or a drink, feed the cat, wash your clothes, clean up the place, call your dad, or that's basically it. And so far, all these things have done only one thing. It was increase her mood. So I've got no idea. Maybe like once you've unlocked every minigame, then you can increase her skills. I have no idea. I guess I'll figure it out as I play. What's also interesting about the game is that if you think that one of the minigames sucks, you don't really have to play it. I'm assuming that there's always going to be at least 2 minigames open for you to play at any time. So yeah, you just pick another one. Like the game very much like at the start is very clear. Don't force yourself to play a minigame if you don't think it's fun. Just, try to increase the character's mood to unlock new minigames that maybe you'll like more. So that's kind of nice. So I don't know if I mentioned it, but like this game is about like 2 to 4 hours to complete apparently. So I'm going to be done with this with no time. It's probably just exactly the amount of this game that I'll want to have experienced. And that's perfect for me right now. Milano's Odd Job Collection, like it's on everything. And, in this case, it's on Switch. And if we want to prolong, again, I forgot that I had maybe more for new business. I went to a pinball place.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I went to play pinball at a bar. It's this bar in Montreal that I never had any luck going to because I was extremely confused as to what this place was in the first place. Because they do have a website, like North Star Pinball, and I thought like, oh, it's going to be this huge place with vintage, like they claim to have like vintage pinball games, old arcade games. But then like you read more and it looks like it's a place that you can rent for events. Turns out that's their warehouse. And it's not open, at all times. Like it's open at very specific hours. And yeah, like it takes, like basically like you would rent it for your like office party or like a big, a big party with lots of people. Like it's, $250 an hour. And minimum of 2 hours. So like there was basically I was trying to get into this place that didn't have any way for a single person to go and check out those vintage pinball games. So that's why I was a little bit confused. But they do have a bar, which did have like unlimited play last Sunday. So Karen and I went, and they were like maybe there were a couple of vintage arcade games. Like there was the Dolly arcade game with Dolly Parton. Not terribly fun, in my opinion. It felt very unfair.
And that's a deep cut. That's a deep cut right
I was hoping you meant Salvador Dali, but still.
Unfortunately, no.
You're a melted clock.
Yeah, hit the melting clock for, to activate the screaming bonus. No, wait, that's a different
multi-ball. It practically writes itself,
Right.
but no, Dolly Parton's fine.
Yeah, no, disappointing. Missed opportunity.
But close enough to that. There were multiple more recent machines, and I don't know if you've seen those around. Like they've all got the fairly like high resolution, good quality like LCD screen on them, and they're mostly all licensed, and they're mostly all licensed for movies that might appeal to old fogies, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm talking about Jaws, but also like maybe like Pulp Fiction, The Big Lebowski. I did.
Yeah.
So the ones that they had at the this bar, I played the Big Lebowski one, and it was so fucking dumb. It was a fun machine. I actually lasted a long time, so I had a lot of fun. But I mean, like, it's been a while since I've watched a Big Lebowski. It's not one of those movies that I watch every year. Like, I've seen it maybe like 3 times, but 3 times in like 25 years? I don't know. Like, it's, yeah, the memory fades. So when I activated some mode where I had to show Larry what happens, I was like, wait, what? And so, yeah, you have to show Larry what happens. In the movie, it turns out at some point, John Goodman takes a baseball bat to Larry's car, I assume. So that what happens. In a pinball game, like there is a kind of a separate little floor, and like you can try to send a ball in there. And so when you activate the show Larry what happens mode, a car appears, and you're supposed to bash the car with the pinball. You can activate like mod mode. You can like. It's nonsense. And so, every time that you do something remotely involved in the machine, like if you manage to send it up the ramps that it wants you to send a ball through, you'll activate, it will show you some little scenes from the movie.
Yeah, it shows you the carpet brings the room together mode or something.
Right, yeah. And so, so that was pretty fun. Probably like the one I enjoyed the most. But other than that, like they had like a Fall of the Empire, I believe, like Star Wars game. That was pretty fun. In the end, like they all felt a little bit samey, and because, like we had kind of a limited time to get through all these machines. There were maybe like a dozen there. Like I didn't explore any single one of them. Like so far, I would tell you the Big Lebowski one was my favorite one, just because it was so stupid. But they were mostly like they were fine. They were fun. It's nice to spend time in a pinball place where they've got franchises that appeal to people of my age or maybe even a little bit older. There was a Pokemon one. I did not play it much, but it seemed to be very popular. And of course, you're supposed to, catch them all. Bulbous.
I saw this on Amazon, actually, I think. Like, it was weird, because obviously at some point, something out there on the internet, like, fed to Amazon that I've bought Pokemon games. And so it showed up in, like, one of the automated feeds or whatever. And I think it was, like, about a $3,000 arcade game for Pokemon. But apparently you can capture Pokemon in the pinball game and then transfer them into Pokemon Go or something like that.
That makes sense because, and this was like common to a lot of these machines. Like there was that, and like there was a Dungeons and Dragons machine that definitely had it. The Star Wars machine had it, and Pokemon had it. A QR code that they wanted you to scan to and probably open some sort of account and like to be able to track your progress. So I'm assuming that Dungeons and Dragons had some like character development, leveling up, RPG, nerdy shit to it. And I'm assuming that the Pokemon one keeps track of the Pokemon that you managed to capture. So it's interesting. Like pinball apparently still alive and well, and even like modern, but turned towards the past. So it's been interesting. So I don't know, like I would encourage people, if you live near like a big-ish city or whatever, like try to maybe look up if there's any place that has any recent pinball games. Like, you might be surprised, and yeah, they can be pretty fun.
Yeah, I was in Seattle for business probably late last year, maybe, and we went to a pinball bar, and it's weird because you're expecting to see all of these vintage games, but actually you walk in there and you're like, wait a minute, this stuff's all brand new. These are all brand new pinball machines, and like you said, with all of the LCD screens and everything like that, and like tie in with, use your phone to do this, and it's like, wow, like pinball games, they've been completely modernized. Like, they're not only are there still a bunch of them being released, but yeah, I mean, you look at these things and they're like, this is probably worth a lot of money. Like, there's a lot of technology packed into these things now.
Yeah. No, it's I pretty much said all I was going to say about pinball, I guess. But it's all modern and yet old familiar franchises that you love. Like, none of that Minions shit. I don't know.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure when I went to this pinball bar, I think they did have the Dungeons and Dragons one. I'm pretty sure they had that one there. I remember that. Yeah, and it's cool, really cool.
Yeah, I was very bad at it, so I did not enjoy it. But I'm assuming that maybe if you invest time in it and you scan the QR code and everything, maybe you're Kobold or, like, I don't know, whatever character you're playing as, like, I'm guessing that enhances the experience if you can make it grow and get better and then get better scores. I have no idea.
Yeah. Some of them, I was surprised at how elaborate some of the pinball, some of them were, like all the different things that you could do, but also the way that the things that would build over time. Like, you had to do this, and then you had to do that, and then and that's always kind of been there, but I mean, this is just like a whole new level. Like, there's 10 different steps you can take before you trigger this particular mode.
Right, and they have a lot of as you say, like, that's long been in pinball games that you're supposed to do like fulfill certain requirements to unlock some modes, but I think that these machines are especially focusing on kind of like transformation, like the X-Men machine has like this big sentinel face in the middle of it. Well, like, it's not going to be, the mouth is not going to be open until you do a lot of other stuff before. Like, the Big Lebowski, like, there were at least 3 levels, right? There was the place with the car at the top. There was the main table in the middle, and under the main table I could see there was a bowling alley. I did not manage to unlock the bowling alley, but there was like something going like under the floor of the pinball game. The Transformers machine also like had lots of like requirements, like with what's his name, Scream Sound, I don't know. Anyway,
Starscream, same way.
Starscream, probably, yeah. Like
Starscream would be shrieking. That's his character.
Yeah, very whiny, very whiny.
Yeah, but yeah, like, there were like scenes from the cartoon displayed on the TV, but there was also like a big gun that you could the ball could get into, and then like you could shoot from it. Like, it was elaborate. Like, lots of parts, lots of mechanical stuff going on in addition to just the video stuff. That I think that's one of the things that really surprised me, because like, there was a certain time, maybe in the 90s or the 80s, where like there were LCD screens that were not the LCD screens that we know today. There were more like diodes, like big chunky diodes that you would show you kind of a rudimentary like orange on black scene, and like, okay, now you're racing a car, and it was just like you use the flippers to like the buttons on each side to just like steer from left to right on like 3 lanes or something. Like, it was very rudimentary. In this case, fancy screens, fancy LCD screens, but mostly to show you scenes from the movies or the franchise that you're engaging with. but most of the gameplay they actually keep to the table. So yeah, it's fairly impressive. Like I recommend people seek out whatever pinball games like they can find in their regions. But yeah, Karen and I had a good time.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this Pokemon pinball machine, and this is a place where you can buy it. It's so new; it just came out, and so it came out at some point this year, 2026. It's $9,499. And so what it says here is utilizing Stern Pinball's award-winning Insider Connected, Pokemon by Stern Pinball elevates the experience by connecting trainers in their adventures across machines and locations. When trainers play Pokemon by Stern Pinball, signed in with their Stern Insider Connected account,
okay,
the Pokemon they catch will be added to their Insider Connected Pokemon collection, which can be viewed in the Insider Connected app. Why you would want to view your Pokemon in the Insider Connected app? That is just so specific. Like, yes, this is an app for Stern pinball machines, and your Pokemon are only in this app, which seems really weird to me. But
well, I mean, like it's a how do you call that? It's a not fidelity, loyalty kind of thing, right? Also, it's kind of a grinding element to it. Like, I feel like a lot of entertainment these days, like a lot of video gaming, and I guess now pinball gaming is the grind. Like they want to reward you for not just, for investing a lot of time in their game, not just by, have you get better at it, but also kind of like, oh, well, you've been playing this for this long, so you've unlocked this many rewards. It makes sense for Pokemon because like the franchise just lends itself to it. And yeah, D&D also was perfect for that. I'm not sure with the Star Wars thing, like what that would have unlocked, but yeah, in the moment, I didn't want to be like scanning any QR codes, but maybe if I go back, maybe I'll try it.
Yeah. So this is the premium edition of this. Just the normal version is $6,999. I don't know how much the limited edition one is worth. I don't know. But probably, I would think somewhere around $12,000 or something crazy like that. This was wild to me. But yeah. Okay, cool. All right. I will finish off new business here, just wrapping up a couple of things I've been talking about for a while. I finally did finish off Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
Nice.
Finished off the Order of Giants DLC, which, Guillaume, if you ever break your boycott, is actually a good time. It's worth playing through. And actually, the final boss in that is much better. That boss encounter is much better than the boss encounter in the main game. It's much more what I expected out of the final boss encounter in the main game. It's not just kind of like bad first-person fighting.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, so it's definitely worthwhile, and it's really a direct extension of the main game, and actually pretty linear to play through. Doesn't add a whole lot. Doesn't really take too long. I mean, it's hard for me to say. It's hard for me to say how long it actually takes because of the game-breaking save game bug that I ran into, which fortunately I ran into last weekend, and I think the bug had actually been out there. This is on PlayStation 5. The bug had actually been out there for about a month, I think, from a previous patch, from maybe even before when I hadn't even tried the game. But it had been out there for a while, and I found that out, from Reddit, which pointed me to the Bethesda website. And turns out it was actually a bug because I thought I was just going crazy. But fortunately, so I found this bug, encountered it, and then pretty much about like a week later, it was hot fixed, and so it's confirmed fixed. But what was happening was, your save file became corrupted because the game was having a hard time. The thing is with the save file in this game, I don't know. I'm curious how big it gets on the Switch, because on PS5 or Switch 2, because on PS5, like your save file is gargantuan. It gets up to like 336 megs. It's huge, right? Normally, I don't know.
Are you telling me that a Bethesda game, it's Bethesda, right? It has a problem on a PlayStation console with save files that get bigger and bigger and bigger until it breaks the game? I've
Yeah.
never heard of
It's
this
like, wow,
happening
shock,
before.
right? I knew it as soon as I saw it because with PlayStation you can upload your save files to the cloud, and of course as soon as I started having a problem with my save file, I cracked open the hood a little bit and just saw like I'm just like, Jesus, this is a huge save file. Why is it so big? And as soon as I saw that, I was like, I bet you that PS5, because what it was doing is it would say, I can't save, because it does auto saves, right? Like you can't manually save. So you just walk into a new room and it auto saves. You have no control over it. So when it would auto save, it would say there's no space left on the drive to save your game. You can either continue without saving your game, or you can like roll back to an earlier save or something like that. It basically says your save file, it starts eventually saying your save file is corrupted, and then you have to roll back. So you lose hours of progress by doing this, because I couldn't really figure out exactly what it was doing with the rollback mechanism either, because the rollback was like 2 hours, 3 hours back. So I had to go like way, way back several times until I finally went online and I saw that this was actually an issue. And then I said, well, okay, I'm going to put this game on the back burner, because obviously either my save file is completely corrupted and I'm screwed, or I could get it back to a state where my save file was okay, but once this got triggered and it got into this state, I couldn't get it back out of it unless I rolled back. And so finally I was like, well, I could kind of try to nurse it by going forward a little bit and then stopping and uploading my save file, but it's like, also I'm not going to keep uploading like what's effectively a third of a gig of a save file over and over again. Because like I do actually have cap data on my internet, so it's just a waste. So that was I couldn't do that. Not that I wanted to, but if I had to. But so it did get patched, thankfully, but I'm sure some people out there they were hosed because it corrupted your save file. And if you eventually didn't have any save files to roll back to, and I thought it was also curious that it did have a rollback mechanism. I'm like, did you guys just expect this? Like, cause it says your save file is corrupted. Go into this menu and select roll back to previous save, and I'm like, it's kind of funny that exists.
Right.
It seems kind of suspect.
But like Skyrim, famously on the PlayStation 3, was kind of like became unplayable. It was a very poor port because of some issue with the save file like this. The more you played, the more it crashed.
Yeah. So I guess with this, and the thing is, with this bug, I encountered it probably about halfway through the Order of Giants DLC, but I hadn't. I think actually the thing is, my save file was really big. I mean, the only thing I can think is that the more stuff that you collect in the game, because I had all the collectibles at that point. Like I beat the main game, then went back and got all of the collectibles. So my save file was huge, but also too, it's like the save file just gets bigger the more stuff you collect. Like, what is up with that? Like, that's just hilarious. Hopefully they don't put out any more DLC, or else apparently your save file would just get as big as the main game. But yeah, so I started having this problem like within the Order of Giants DLC. So, but fortunately they patched it, so I was able to completely go through. I've got almost everything. But the thing is, I will say with the collectibles, when you get really, really down to the nitty gritty, there's like some collectibles where you go onto one map and it looks like it's on the other map, and then you go to that map and then it looks like it's on the map that you just were. Like, it's very hard to find some of them. But I'm almost there, and I actually think I'll be able to platinum it because I looked at the remaining. Fortunately, this isn't one of those games where one of the, trophies to get is like, play the entire game again on the hardest difficulty, which is just, those ones are just so annoying to me. That's most games, actually. Like I was fully expecting, because it opens up a new game plus, that one of the trophies you would have to have was play through the whole game again and beat it on New Game Plus, which I was not going to do. Because this game is pretty long, 60 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours probably to play through. Like, it's a big game. Totally worthwhile, but I don't have any problems with the length of it, but there's a lot in there. So totally worthwhile, Guy, if you ever have a chance to play through Order of Giants without having any sort of ethical quandary, I would recommend that you do so. And so fortunately that all got resolved, and I was able to pretty much continue and beat it. And also still playing through Halo, which I played through the beginning missions, the kind of 3 bonus missions that they talk about. And it's fine. I mean, you're just kind of going in and taking over a Covenant ship sort of thing. True to the spirit of the rest of the game. It doesn't feel weird by any means. You're just running in there with like Sergeant Johnson, who is kind of the drill sergeant guy. And so it's kind of a prequel. I don't even really know. It didn't really even feel like too much of a prequel to the
Were there
to the main
big
game.
questions about Master Chief that needed answering, or that didn't need answering, but we need to make a prequel to explain why he's called Master Chief, or why he's
not really. No, that's the thing though. I mean, there's just so much. There's like just so much lore around all of that stuff that it's but also too, it's like there's nothing that those bonus missions, like kind of like the prequel missions, there's nothing like revelatory or anything that they answered that I was always wondering about. It's just sort of like, this is a wacky side mission with Master Chief and Sergeant Johnson, like, where they just, have some banter and stuff, and I can't even remember. It's really like this. What they're trying to do is kind of like not really of huge consequence. It's like, we have to go in here, like there's a lab on this Covenant ship, and we have to go and blow it up so we can blow up the lab so they're not making weapons that they can use against other planets, like they used against this planet or that planet. It's that type of thing. And you have to, you hear a distress call, and there's some other kind of space marines on there, and you have to help them escape, and so yeah. It's that kind of stuff, but it's pretty good. I mean, it's a little bit more Halo for your Halo dollar, so I have really no complaints. And so now I'm just moving on to the main story and kind of going through that. Trying to collect all the same thing, like collect all the skulls, and that kind of stuff. And some of those can be pretty tough. They're like, there's some of those skulls in some of the missions I was in the prequel stuff where they're pretty open about it, where they say, like, if you look at any guide online, they'll say, you either have to know how to do, like, a grenade jump, which is, like, a very specific kind of, like, trick jump. If you're going to do this by yourself, you either need to know how to do a grenade jump, or you have to do it co-op with somebody to really get this skull. Because some of them, and then they'll also do stuff like they'll have skulls that are actually outside the game bounds. So once you get out to where the skull is, the game actually starts to count you down. Like, you have 10 seconds to get back onto the playfield or you'll die. So they do stuff like that too, which is pretty obnoxious. There's the one part in one of the prequel missions where you're on this moving platform and you're getting attacked, while this is happening, you're getting swarmed by enemies, and you have to hop off of the platform, you have to hop off of the moving platform and get onto like this other platform, race over, get the skull, and then while the platform is moving, get back over to where it is and jump back on before it leaves you behind. And it's incredible. I mean, you have to do it, like, your timing has to be absolutely perfect, to the point where I was just like, man, I finally did do it, but it took me probably like a dozen times to do. It was really difficult. So there's some pretty ridiculous skulls. You have to really kind of, jump through hoops to get some of these skulls. So I'm trying to get that done.
For some reason, my mind is like just sending me back to like Shadows of the Empire, trying to collect those Alliance icons. Like, I feel like there was some similar bullshit sometimes going on.
Yeah, and it's sort of like, do you really have to make these this hard? I mean, they're just extra modifiers. They're not like anything, It's just like, it's kind of always been like that too. But then there's also other stuff too, where you would never figure it out. Like, there's this one, the one skull, where there's this one certain enemy, this Covenant enemy. He's in like gold armor, and you have to shoot him. He appears throughout the level, and you have to shoot him 3 times, and then you have to like walk into this hidden area and then get the skull. And you wouldn't even know that this enemy is there otherwise if you didn't know to specifically look for him, because the 3 areas where he appears, he's at the far, far end of the room. So he's just like a speck on the horizon. And you wouldn't even know he was there. He just looks like a random enemy on the horizon sort of thing. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, man, like, you would never figure this out as a player. Because there's nothing there to indicate that you should shoot at this enemy. You wouldn't even, like, you shoot at who's in front of you, right? You're not going to shoot at some enemy, like, at the other end of the room who isn't even doing anything to you, and who then disappears because he's there for only a limited time and you have to shoot him while he's there, and then he like runs into the doorway. It's just very, very like obscure stuff like that where I'm just like, man, is this really necessary? But you only do it once, so it's, you know, it's very, very finicky, some of this stuff, but it's, but anyway, I mean, I'm enjoying it. It's good. You know, there's a bunch of unlockable, you'll get a kick out of this, Guy. There was actually, so there's unlockable armor, and actually on the PC you can mod. So they have like, somebody put like CJ from Grand Theft Auto in there, so you can play, instead of Master Chief, you're playing with CJ, from Grand Theft Auto. Somebody put Iron Man in there, and like, you can just, so apparently PC players have just like modded the heck out of this game. But also you can also get unlockable armor in it. So, and I didn't know this, but I saw this on Instagram. This is only in Canada, Guillaume, so I've had to hop on a VPN to get it. But there's a Fanta tie-in with Halo Campaign Evolved, only in Canada. So I've had to pose as a Canadian to get it. But there's like unlockable armor for Halo and a couple of other games like World of Warcraft and some of the Call of Duty games. But I got a kick out of that where it's just like, you are not allowed to redeem this in your country. It's like a tie-in with Coca-Cola, right?
Right.
And I was like, God damn, I'm gonna have to get on a Canadian VPN to get this thing. So, you know, as an American, I mean, I'm just locked out. I'm being discriminated against, is what I'm saying. You know, for this Halo, and it's just like to get a code that you put in on HaloWaypoint.com and then it unlocks it in the game, right? And it's just, I think it's just like, I haven't even seen it yet. Because I haven't gone back to play for a few days, but I think it's just this like really garish, like orange armor that has probably like a Fanta logo or something really stupid like that. But the hoops that I had to go through to get that armor, were significant because because the thing is, not only do they block you on that website if you're coming in from a non-Canadian IP, but you also have to create an account on that website as well. So yeah, this is what I do for the UNSC and for Master Chief. These are the kind of hoops that I jump through. So, yeah, but that's it. Does anybody have anything else for new business? Because that wraps me.
No, got nothing. I'm just
Nope.
you know, like sending your info to our CMP.
Okay, cool.
That's about it.
All right, thanks, Guy. Thanks, Guy, you snitch. All right. Okay, so all right, so that'll wrap up new business. We'll come back on the other side of the break with email. So stay tuned. And we are back with listener mail. Thank you to everybody who writes in every week. We are constantly face a deluge of mail with only the top questions that you guys have on your minds. Very, very astute questions every week. And this week I'll read this first one here from longtime listener, multiple time writer Meowth. Meowth writes, Episode 985 and the subsequent follow-up chat on the NWR Discord, always a bad way to start an email, with chat from the NWR Discord, got me distracted thinking about video games, as tends to happen when one is operating heavy machinery. The pie in the sky revolution I'd love to see with video games is for them to go even 2D-er. I'm thinking the likes of Wonder Boy the Dragon's Trap, which plays note for note like the original Master System game, but is lovingly animated to the point that all that heft in the game feel makes sense. Turning around takes a beat because Hugh Man, Hugh Girl has to skirt in all that armor. In honor of that Rayman remake going the other way and rendering everything instead, to the general consensus of, and I'd be tickled if anything comes to mind for the same game, more vibrant treatment, like, say, Virtual Boy Wario Land. While I'm here, since the $9.99 retroactive slot's currently vacant, may I suggest Virtual Boy Wario Land? No, you may not. That's rejected. You get the idea. Love the snow, obey Meowth, destroy Mario Odyssey. So anything that could get this, I guess, 2D, I wouldn't even say D-make. I don't even know what this would be, but anything that comes to mind.
Well, yeah, because I guess it's the thing. I mean, if we're thinking specifically of that Dragon's Trap thing where you don't touch the underlying game design or physics.
Physics, I guess you could say, right?
Right, yeah, like anything about that is, for me, my mind immediately goes to like, okay, what's a game that you feel like it would be pretty much unacceptable to mess with it on that level, right? But could benefit from an aesthetic, change maybe. And for me, that takes me to Zero Mission with Metroid. Not that I don't like the way it looked for a GBA game, because I thought, I think it was a reasonable kind of aesthetic approach of like, okay, we're trying to, be faithful on one level to the original, and because it is sort of based on the original Metroid, right, which had just plain black background. So it's like we're going to have this kind of stark comic book kind of look to it, where we've still got a lot of, kind of black in the backgrounds and sort of, dramatic kind of shading and stuff. So it's kind of different from Fusion, that was not, preceded it, not too long before. And of course, Fusion was a bit painfully conscious of the whole, the GBA screen is not that visible problem, which I guess by the time you got to Zero Mission, the SP was out, so they weren't so concerned about that. So I think I like kind of what they did at the time, but the fact for me, the actual gameplay, the feel of Samus, the locomotion of the character, the weight of the jumps and everything in that is the most perfect I think it's ever been in a Metroid game. So it's like, don't touch that, keep it exactly the same, and maybe just have some, again, maybe lean into that somewhat kind of comic book style that the game already had, and have it look like a hand pencil drawn kind of thing over the top that you could toggle just like you do in the Dragon's Trap remake, and that way maybe, just breathe a bit more life into it. I feel like it does get a bit overlooked. Super Metroid looms so large, and for good reason in a lot of ways, right? In terms of what it was able to accomplish in that space. Before, so many other games, have taken inspiration from that specifically. But, in terms of going back to playing one now, I think Zero Mission has some very strong kind of arguments for it. And maybe, if you actually gave it, the kind of lick of paint and your probably superior soundtrack, quality as well. Again, I felt like they did anything particularly wrong with how they kind of rearranged those NES tunes and stuff, but obviously the GBA had limitations with the sound, right? A bit scratchy and whatnot. So you could have a rich, kind of treatment to that soundtrack again and all that. I think maybe it'd be nice for people like me that have played it a million times to play it again, but also maybe some other people to give it a chance rather than just kind of defaulting to Super Metroid.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing something like this done with maybe Super Castlevania 4 or something like that. It's a game where it has a certain feel to it. I feel like the character has a certain weight to him. It's also not, I feel, so tainted by the just absurd knockback problems that some of the other Castlevania games have, where it's like you're just knocked back and screwed. I don't think that's quite as bad as Super Castlevania 4. But I think this is an interesting question, because really this was, one of the games. I try to think of games that are so hinged on the control scheme being perfect or feeling a certain way, and really a perfect example of this is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, where they actually, when they remade it, they actually used the same physics code from the original game in the remake, because they just looked at it and said, we cannot replicate it. We're not even messing with this. So they just literally took the code and threw it in there. And so that's actually what's used in the remake. But yeah, it's weird, because I can't really think of many games where I say the way that game feels is so crucial, especially when you get into stuff like first-person shooters, where it would have to be a 2D game, because first-person shooters, it's it just changes the whole paradigm, where the feel of the game, or at least the minute-to-minute motion, or the very kind of close feel kind of motion of it, isn't as crucial.
I think an interesting case that overlaps here, but with some obvious, like a clear contradiction, which I can't really kind of judge it from both sides because I've not played the original in question. Bionic Commando, right, is a famous case with the NES game rather than the arcade game because it's very different with the home adaptation. It's famous, right, for it's just like very, very particular sort of distinct character locomotion, right? The feel of, you're grappling to kind of even do more basic kind of jump, what would be like basic jumps in another game, as well as doing, more advanced things. And, I have played the Game Boy version, which I guess is probably like not a million miles away. Not the GBC one with the giant sprites, the black and white Game Boy one that's currently on NSO.
Right.
It's probably fairly similar to the NES game, but I've not played the NES game to say. But I guess, they kind of did this to a degree by doing Bionic Rearmed back in the day, but that, of course, is very much not 2D. It's they did it with polygonal graphics. I can't speak to the fidelity with which they replicated the exact feel of those. Again, like very, very specific and but for the people that love that game, cherished kind of feel of the character and the locomotion in that game. So I don't know whether you could almost do like rearmed Redux, where it's like screw the 3D shit, let's do a 2D this time. But I mean, people generally seem quite happy with Bionic Commando rearmed, didn't they?
Yeah. I'm trying. Go ahead, Guy.
No, I mean they were. People were happy with it. Yeah. And then the sequel, they made a second one and it was not as good. I think they actually added a jump button, maybe, if I recall correctly. And people were like, what's the point of this?
Yeah. But I also am trying to think of if Bionic Commando is interesting because it's one of the ones that has been remade multiple times, both in 2D and 3D, right?
Absolutely, like I said, you think about Game Boy Color, rearmed. I mean, there's been a lot of it. And the only actual like reissue of the NES game is in Street Fighter 6 for some reason.
Weird, so weird. Yeah. I'm just wondering if there's any other. Kind of 3D games to be demade.
Well, one place I went with 2D. This as well, which is a little bit Dragon's Trap, but again, I don't know. I'm not as attached to these games, but there are people who are. So, it's still probably worth mentioning. But like, what a remake that I think was like, and again, that doesn't fulfill the criteria, but it's the kind of thing that you're going for, is a Super Mario RPG remake, right? In terms of like that game, lots to admire about it in its original form, but the graphics were not like that look great to look at, especially when you put some distance in time between its original release and the kind of the
it's Toy Story graphics.
Yeah, the novelty of the pre-rendered stuff for long more wears off, and it's kind of like But then with the remake, it's pretty much just entirely faithful, right? But you're actually doing it in 3D in that case, and everything seems way more natural and just looked like they kind of slightly changed the kind of characters. They're like cuter and stuff. Like it's like, well, that's really great now. Like you took this thing that was fundamentally really good and you just gave it a better presentation. And I really enjoyed playing through that remake. Right, it was a great way for people to discover the game for the first time. Right, if they'd never played it before. But, so then you think, well, what about other pre-rendered games could we cure, shall we say, of their pre-renderedness? And so you could easily think of, well, what about Donkey Kong Country, the trilogy on Super Nintendo, right? It's like, let's do, some kind of to actually do like 2D graphics for that game, like what if DKC had never been pre-rendered, which is a weird thing because it was just so intrinsic to its appeal, right, and to its commercial power. It feels a bit wrong to take that away from it, right? But at the same time, it would look better because those graphics don't look that hot in retrospect, right?
Yeah, but like the characters are so slidey, and like when you're on the treetops, like it looks rounded and it looks like you're gonna fall off, and then like you can. I feel like that art style is integral to you being able to play it. Like I don't think it would kind of explain the heft of the character or whatever like it does.
No, I don't know about that.
Wonder
To be
Boy
honest,
character.
though, I do think like if you did a different graphic style, it might make it more readable. I mean, I don't think DKC was like all out Earthworm Jim shit, but that
Right.
I feel like it's not as clear because of this whole like, oh, it's kind of like it's three-dimensional, isn't it? Because we've got these pre-rendered, 3D assets making up the 2D backgrounds. I feel like if you did make it, as Meowth demands, 2D, one of the benefits could be that it's more obvious, where the edge of a platform is, what you're actually landing on when you're jumping on treetops and stuff. And it could look aesthetically more pleasing, and maybe you could use that new DK design or so, for it as well, and some of the other things. So.
Yeah, but I feel like
there. But one thing to distinguish it from the Zero Mission example is like I don't feel like DKC is some exquisite game, any of them really, that's just being held back by the graphics, right? Because the reality is that the graphics were a huge boon to it in its day, So they're solid enough platformers. I've enjoyed ripping through them pretty fast, like on your virtual console and stuff like that, I guess. Or NSO, I should say. But I don't know that there's any great benefit to be enjoyed necessarily either.
Yeah, I guess I would have to see it to believe it. Like to me, like the controls are kind of sloppy, and I feel like that is easier to excuse because of the way it looks. Like the graphics kind of make the sloppiness make sense. It makes sense that, oh yeah, sure, like you're sliding off this platform, but that's fine, you can still jump, like you went on a roll or whatever. Like I would need, I guess it depends on what they do with that 2D art. I don't know. Like, I guess, like, first I had misread the Meow's question at first, so I was looking for stuff that didn't have anything to do with this topic. But I guess, like, to me, like, the Wonder Boy remake was so successful and like making the gameplay make more sense, but also like to just like dress up the game a little bit, like you look at the remake and like, oh wow, this vast field extending in the distance, and then you switch the graphics and it's like, oh wait, no, this is just a blue background, light blue sky, nothing else.
Sometimes
you really
it was comical, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, other times you could see, like, okay, this is an extrapolation of what's there, and then other times it's like, no, this is like entirely imagined from nothing, essentially.
So I guess like what I would like to see is maybe like developers who have like a similar like love and imagination, like show what they imagined as a kid when they were playing through their favorite adventure game. And like, to me, like there's stuff like Rygar on the NES that comes to mind. Like it was like, I remember the kick-ass overworld music, but very little else. I don't think that it played especially well, unfortunately. But also, like, I remember that there were a lot of, just like blue skies and not much else going on. And there might have been...
that has some brutal knockback.
Right.
Rygar does, man.
Absolutely. And I think that there were many places where, like, there were secrets. Maybe you were supposed to, like, send I think a rope in the sky or something. And, like, sometimes there was something there, and so you could climb the rope. But most of the time there wasn't. But like anyway, like maybe, yeah, like a remake would add the environmental clues that would tell you like, hey, try sending your rope up here, like actually like show a reason why you would even try this. And so, to mark where the secrets are or where the main path is. And as I'm saying this, like another example I can think of is Karnov, of all games. I don't like playing Karnov, but it's got a lot of secrets, a lot of like, oh yeah, and like a ladder that you can use, a ladder item that you can use, and like there's doesn't seem to be much of a point to it except that it will bring you up to pick up some other power-ups. And so like maybe like the extra graphics, extra backgrounds would help kind of guide the players towards like what the hell it is that they're supposed to be doing. Kind of like, you know, the trail of coins in a Mario game, except it's more like, oh, this wall is cracked, maybe I can use an item here, you know, in a game where there was no such clue before.
Yeah, but you use the extra nuance you've got for like context and things like that, so where it could actually kind of you know, it complement the design even if it's not outright changing it.
Yeah.
Another very
a couple
stupid
other games.
Oh,
go ahead, yeah.
A very stupid idea I had. Keep the gameplay of SNES Classic Stunt Race FX, but take the polygonal graphics and turn them into 2D renderings, drawings at the same frame rate as the original game, which was perfect.
Just like turn it into like, I don't know, it's got like a Mode 7 game, but it's like the worst running Mode 7 game ever made.
Exactly. But like you get like these gorgeous like 2D drawings of what's happening. You just get them, you know, 6 times per second.
It's pretty much going to look like a racing game as if it were animated by like the South Park people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I think a cool sort of 2D idea would be, just because I think these games look absolutely so hideous now, would be like for something like the original Killer Instincts or Pit Fighter, where those look so terrible now. And it would be cool to see them actually turned into kind of a modern 2D fighter, rather than, I mean, Killer Instinct is now a modern 3D fighter, but at least the last iteration of it.
It is polygonal, kind of a more, again, what you can do with the 2D stuff, what's nice about stuff like Dragon's Trap is just that stylization that seems, you know, I guess, you know, you've got the kind of Arc System approach where they kind of fake it as much as they can, right? You know, it's like, it is polygonal, but they make it look like as if it's hand-drawn kind of stuff, don't they, with Guilty Gear and the Marvel fighting game that's just about to come out, is it, on PS5? Like, they kind of really try and get as much of a kind of 2D, like, hand-animated look to 3D, you know, models as possible. But most of the time, I assume that's just kind of too much time, too costly for developers to justify, unless it is, as it is in the case of Arc System Works, they're known for that aesthetic, right? That is their brand, so they're kind of obliged to bring that forth in whatever way they can. What I've seen of the new, and it's not that new anymore, obviously, Killer Instinct, it's not like really stylish like that. Whereas, if you did a 2D version of it, maybe you could come up with something that kind of looked, sort of a lot more, just kind of elegant, really, than polygonal games tend to look.
Yeah. The thing about Mortal Kombat is the newer ones, like, they do look like convincing human characters for the most part. So. Yeah, I don't know. Like, maybe like you could take the latest ones and flatten them somehow. Like, get rid of the 3D-ness of the models, maybe, and like maybe that could make a convincing kind of old school Mortal Kombat game. Just make sure that like whenever like there's a character that explodes and giblets, like always have like at least 5 skulls on the ground for some reason that resulted from the explosion. And I think that would be pretty convincing.
I don't know if I could go back to like not having the X-ray of something like going through somebody's genitals or something like that. I don't know if I could actually.
It's hard to go back.
It wouldn't feel like Mortal Kombat to me anymore.
Yeah,
you know. So.
Yeah, I've kind of alluded to this when we had the question about like how would games have been different if they weren't on N64. So another one on the sort of cure it of being pre-rendered tip would be Mischief Makers. Not again. Is it a classic? I don't think so. It's been a long time since I played it now. I got a cartridge for my N64, quite a long time after the fact, after it originally came out. But, I think it was still probably like, 2008, 2009, like ages and ages ago. But still, aesthetically, ugly as sin, really. If you gave it a bit of a facelift, it could be maybe people would see some of the fun stuff that's in there a bit more. Be more willing to look at it. At least if you just brought it, like I said, more into line with like the kind of aesthetic that Treasure was doing at the time elsewhere, like your Silhouette Mirages and stuff, or your Guardian Heroes and whatnot, like that. So
yeah, Mischief Makers always felt like it just seemed like the character sprites were so much larger than the hitboxes you were dealing with. It always just felt very weird.
That's one thing that'd be interesting about doing the Super Castlevania 4 thing, isn't it? Because like that was a fucking massive sprite for the day, compared to like Simon Belmont in the original. So I guess it gives you, a sort of canvas to play with there in terms of like, what I mean, like, because that's if you are being true to the original dimensions of the sprites, if they were like very small, little characters. Obviously it works with Dragon's Trap, for instance, but, it isn't so, you can't necessarily pack it with like loads of detail, I guess. You've got to kind of stay true to that. Whereas that was one case where it's like, okay, yeah, Simon was really, really big on the screen. They kind of made up for it, I guess, by making the game easier in some other ways, in terms of you had the multi-directional whip, which meant you could protect yourself a lot more effectively than you ever could in regular Castlevania. But yeah, that's that's definitely kind of would be interested to me. It's like, is it the best pure design Castlevania? Maybe not, but I've got immense affection for it because of when I played it as a small child and all that, and just God, the sound. Don't touch the soundtrack. Actually, just leave it as the Super Nintendo one. It's fine. I'm too attached to those Konami samples, the slap bass and all that. I wouldn't want it to
it's too good.
Although, again, I would say, I'm sure we've said this before because we did the retroactive and stuff, like, they redid Rondo, which is probably the better designed game, for classic Castlevania as a polygonal game. And I kind of feel like, God, yeah, like, if you did a 2D remake of it instead, it would probably benefit from that, I think, because it's a damn cool game. But like, as I've mentioned in the past, like there's bits of it where the graphics are unfinished and they're just like reusing assets. And like I said, the polygonal remake remedied that, but it's polygonal. And so I feel like it doesn't quite feel the same. And, especially now where PSP graphics are old hat, it's not that, pleasant to look at. Whereas, you do the Dragon's Trap treatment to it, and it in the right way, and it could look really, really nice. And it's just, I think, fundamentally an excellent classic action game.
Yeah. Now, another interesting case is Dragon Quest XI, where it has the 2D and 3D modes. I haven't actually played through the 2D mode on that. I haven't gotten too deep into Dragon Quest XI, the 3D mode either, but is there any other RPGs that come to mind for something like that that have been in 3D but could be better in 2D? Maybe some of the early PlayStation 1 RPGs, probably. Some of those were pretty rough.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder about something like Chrono Cross, for instance, like I've not played that much of it, but obviously, and I guess it's not as all over the shop as like FF7 was, because there's like 3 different versions of the characters in that, right? Like there's the wandering around the map version, and then there's the the battle version of the characters, and then there's the cutscene version of the characters, which sometimes can be like more one than the other. I mean, it's like it's kind of hilarious looking back on it. That they couldn't like have something consistent. Obviously, some of it's technical reasons, but with Chrono Cross, it seems a lot more kind of rigid or just like kind of defined than that, but still, like, it's got some very nice kind of backgrounds, but then the characters that inhabit it don't have the same kind of elegance. So I guess it's like, could you, by kind of making it more consistently 2D, have characters that actually feel like they belong to the same aesthetic and style and everything as the backgrounds do, I guess.
All right. I think we'll move on to the next topic here. Let's see. Guillaume, do you want to read this one?
Yeah, sure. Ben writes, "Gentlemen, scholars, and lawn, I listen to a ton of audiobooks. Most of them are narrated by a single reader, but sometimes there's a couple readers or a full ensemble. This got me thinking, what if game dialogue was treated the same way, where one performer read all the lines? You have been given the power to have one performer voice all lines of dialogue in a game of your choice, and that performer is Willem Dafoe. What game are you sentencing to this fate? Is there another voice actor, media member, or podcast cast member you'd like to perform this task? Love to know."
I think, do you know that, speaking of as we touched on this last week, the fire hose strategy that Square Enix has employed at various points for kind of content, voice of cards, don't they do this? I feel like James spoke about this at some point, that like voice of cards kind of has a central narrator kind of do everything. So such things exist in our current, kind of gaming landscape, I'm sure, but I'm not.
Yeah, it's almost like a parent reading a story to a child, right?
Yeah, sure.
And doing different,
There's not that many.
So just picture Willem Dafoe as your dad. Go from there.
What I've got in mind is, like, for me, I think, again, it kind of fits the storybook thing that you're mentioning, and I'm mostly saying this because I would really like to hear what Willem Dafoe's take on Bowser would be. I think any of the Mario RPGs you want to pick where Bowser's a major character, I would love to hear him do a sort of grumpy, snarly Bowser voice while also voicing everything else, I guess. I don't tend to think of Willem Dafoe as a big accent guy or anything, but I guess there are, this thing that he will do stuff from time to time. I guess there was the one where he's playing like Nosferatu, but it's he really was Shadow of the Vampire, right? The idea that when they were making that film, it was with a real vampire. Willem Dafoe is playing it. He's pretty fun in that, doing the voice in that, and of course he was in the recent Nosferatu film, but as the Van Helsing substitute character, right, by Eggers. So that's a weird circular thing for him, and there's like the lighthouse and stuff. So he's got range. He could do it.
Yeah, he can do enough. He can do enough weird, creepy stuff. But I'm just trying to think of what character would he be really strange as seeing voice, like maybe in like talking about older JRPGs. Some of the absolutely so overly exuberant anime characters in some of those old RPGs where you're just listening to them and they're just like, "Oh, hi, how are you? Oh my gosh, I can't believe it." Like, hearing him do some of those voices would be absolutely hysterical because they're so over the top. Like in some of those like old Lunar RPGs and stuff like that, where I don't know if I could even play through them right now because like some of the characters are so childish repeatedly for the whole thing.
And that like I forgot to mention this, but like in Milano's Odd Job collection, she's got a very high pitched voice, and like it's exactly like that. But of course, I would tell Willem Dafoe, like, no, give us the Willem Dafoe. Keep your voice. Don't try the high pitched thing. Just be yourself. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I just think some of those. Yeah, I question the direction of a lot of those games just to begin with, right? But the questionable direction combined with Willem Dafoe would potentially be gold. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can really think of anything else that I would say, but also too, I mean, I think there's some legendary games like early Resident Evil. The ones with really, really bad scripts are like, I'd love to hear Willem Dafoe do, What is a Man, but, a miserable pile of secrets, stuff like that.
For like the really dodgy, like early scripts, I feel like the fella that is Matt Berry, right, from Dark Place, and he, for some reason he was like an announcer on the Oscars this year. Toast to London, James talked about it, his voice doing, like some of those early like Resident Evil lines about Jill sandwiches or whatever. Like, I think that could be excellent, to be fair. Yeah. Or maybe Berry does Kojima. Imagine that. Some earlier Kojima. I don't really know what stuff like Death Stranding is like, and obviously they get A-line people to do it, don't they? But I think the earlier kind of lower profile stuff done by him would be like I said, just thinking a Dark Place, really. It would just fit in, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Who else aside from Willem Dafoe? I mean, I was thinking Steven Seagal doing some of these, doing an entire game.
Just whispering and mumbling his way through the. I tell you what, now for those of you who think, well, hang on a minute, Seagal's only got one voice. What you got to watch is Out for Justice, where he's playing a guy who's meant to be, a proper Italian American lad. From the streets of New York or whatever. So he's giving it who would have thought I'd become a cop? Oh my God. I could barely watch it. I'm just in tears. It's so funny. Him trying to do a different voice than his usual hushed, I'm so lethal I don't even have to raise my voice bullshit that he normally does. He's all demonstrative, the hands are coming out, he's doing the big Italian stereotype mannerisms. It's hilarious. I mean, it's just I can understand if people don't want to look at Seagal's face. That's that's you could sort of just have the sound on, maybe coming through your sound system and just doing that, because you'd still get quite a lot of hilarity out of it.
Yeah, I mean, or him doing like Steven Seagal like voicing over an entire like Metal Gear Solid game or something like that. Like, it would just
Steven
be unbelievable.
Seagal game scripts ASMR or whatever. Yeah, I can imagine that.
It's just unbelievable.
Problem is, it's just not enough for him these days, is it? If it's not that sweet Kremlin money, he doesn't want it.
Right. Now, do you think if obviously Charles Bronson, one of our heroes on this podcast, do you think that Charles Bronson, do you think he would have had a place in today's video game industry as a voiceover talent?
I mean,
is his wife in the game? I think that's the main question he would have.
Yes.
What? To get murdered? You're saying?
No.
He was one of those guys. Jill Ireland, who he was married to, was in almost everything that he was in while they were married, and she passed quite young, unfortunately. So after a certain point, obviously that stopped being the case. But he was one of those guys that was pretty adamant about getting her in everything. So I guess theoretically, if we're rolling back time, it would not be a one-man show. It would at least be Bronson does every character bar one, and that would be Jill Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that would be a demake of Resident Evil, right? Have Charles Bronson as Chris Redfield, and then have Jill Ireland as Jill Valentine, right? Like,
mate, it's the part she was born to play.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're onto something here.
To be fair, then, if you really want to just go all out, no holds barred, if speaking of people who are sadly no longer with us, the Phil Hartman game, right? Every character is Phil Hartman just going big, doing his. Because I mean, obviously, lots of people on The Simpsons were doing multiple voices, and some of them I could tell as a kid, but like obviously the Hartman characters were like just so, you know what I mean, like Huts, and the monorail guy and all that. It's just like it's pretty much the same, and Troy McClure, obviously, it's pretty much the same voice. So I can only assume if you asked him to do a game, that's pretty much what you'd be getting. But again, I think it could work kind of like the Berry thing for your early CD era video games.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we were just remarking on how crazy Troy Baker is, sounding just like Harrison Ford. I mean, that guy can do almost any voice, so that's just interesting. You know, to think that somebody could be actually... You're not used to people being that versatile. Like, we're talking about Steven Seagal, who is like the least versatile man. Anything, actor, voice actor, any kind of actor. It's just interesting to think that somebody could actually tackle that. There's very few people who could. Phil Hartman would... Yeah, Phil Hartman wasn't really one.
No.
He didn't really change it up too much. But I can't think of anybody else who would possibly be that versatile where... Well, so we had the conversation a while back about Frank Welker, which someone who emailed in to point out when I said, like, oh, you know, doing sort of animal noises, isn't that a Frank Welker thing? And with respect to Yoshi, you know, being the Donald Glover in the Galaxy movie, and somebody wrote in to point out, well, he had literally already done that in the 90s movie. That was Welker that did the Yoshi noises for the puppet Yoshi in the Bob Hoskins Super Mario Brothers movie. So yeah, they did that, but at the same time, he did do a lot of different kinds of voices, because he did cute little high-pitched things, but then he did, you know, scratchy evil Megatron and all that kind of stuff. So he could probably go a certain amount of the way. But that's the problem is, though, really, the Troy Baker, if you're too good, no one's going to appreciate that it is literally the same guy doing all these different voices. Yeah. Yeah, the only other guy I can think of is maybe someone like, I mean, just because he wraps his entire whole shtick around it, is like Frank Caliendo is another guy where he could probably hold down an entire game just doing all the different voices.
I've got a one, but like I don't know if it means anything to anyone. There's this game. It's the only musical game that I can think of, Astrologaster, which is a this indie game where you play like in like the Shakespearean era London. It's based on this true story, apparently, a real person, Simon Foreman, who was basically like a quote unquote doctor of astrology, astronomy, and physics, and like people would consult him with their medical problems. And anyway, so there's a lot of singing in it. And it's very ridiculous, but I guess like the only person to do the singing justice is, of course, and now I'm saying this and I blanked out on the fucking name. Of course, Star Trek, Rocket Man. Who am I thinking of?
Oh, Shatner, the spoken
word.
Of
course.
Of
Jesus
course.
Christ.
Yeah. The man with the golden throat.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Only Shatner can bring a musical game to life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I'm just on the page here for Astrologaster. It says it's just a story from Rock Paper Shotgun, says that it's a story reminiscent of Blackadder, dripping with sarcasm. It's theatrical and funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun game. And like, to be serious for a second, it would in no way be improved by Shatner. In fact, you can append this, what I just said, to basically anything. Like, let's voice clip this, and you can add it to just about any game I've ever talked about. And it will fit.
It's still incredible that guy had actually a solo album. That's just incredible to me. Like, I don't think I even knew that. Who signed off on that?
I don't think I even knew that. I didn't want to explore that. I really only have seen the video of the Rocketman performance. And
that's from a whole album that he did.
I didn't want to explore beyond that, I guess.
Yeah, you know now. Now it's stuck in the back of your head.
Oh God.
You wake up in a sweat thinking about Shatner's solo album.
Wow.
All right. Okay. I think we're going to wrap things up here with we have one kind of follow-up from last week's email about kind of upgrades and all of that stuff. So I'll read this one. Matthew writes, "Hello, Radio Free Nintendo team. I enjoyed your recent episode 985 and generally agree with your takes on Square Enix's scattershot Nintendo Switch 2 upgrade/edition approach. I discovered a great perk to the NS2, the Switch 2 edition of Star Ocean Second Story R, however, that is going unnoticed. The Switch 1 original only offers Japanese and American English language options, while the Switch 2 version apparently adds French, German, Italian, and Spanish. I love language learning and have merged my hobbies to only play games in French. I wanted to play Star Ocean Second Story R upon its release, but didn't bite because French was not offered. Mais enfin, je peux apprécier cette grande aventure parmi les étoiles. Les étoiles. My bad. How's that, Guillaume?
It was all right. I'm sure you don't get to practice your French too much, so commendable effort.
And I also did not plan on reading French at all. I kind of walked right into that one. So.
Yeah, I was surprised when you decided to take this one on, but
yeah. So there you go. But it would have been great to have all the language options from the beginning, but if Square Enix uses Switch 2 editions to have global audiences, to give global audiences more access to good games, then I think that's worth celebrating a bit, even if Square Enix is not celebrating it or calling it out themselves. LOL. Thank you for the great podcast. Cheers, Matt. How much of that have you encountered, Guillaume? Like, have you seen a lot of that where newer versions of games like add French, or because I mean, almost everything should have French now, right?
I think so, but it really depends. But the fact is, like, I keep my Switch in English, and I kind of don't enjoy French dubs and French voice acting. To be honest, I've had enough of it in my life. Like dubbing American TV shows, or sometimes, unbeknownst to me, Australian TV shows. I couldn't make the difference, tell the difference, because they were all the same actors, dubbing everything. But anyway, like I wouldn't have noticed. I don't think it probably doesn't happen all that much. I don't know why it would have happened for this Switch 2 release, but not Switch 1. Maybe like it's a cartridge capacity thing. Like maybe because the Nintendo Switch 2 edition of Star Ocean is probably like a game key card. They don't have to worry about the size of the cartridge, and so they're going to include more languages. Or it could be that maybe like I would need to check this to verify this, but maybe this Star Ocean Second Story R, like maybe it came out later in Europe than in North America. And so, like, in North America, to release it in Quebec, to be able to sell it in Quebec, like, you don't need the game to be in French. You need the packaging to have French on it. So maybe, like, okay, like, they had the Japanese and the English on the North American release. That's fine. Then later, it came out in Europe with, like, German and French and everything. And then with this edition, well, now we have the opportunity to give these languages to put them in every release of this game. So, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, and definitely, beneficial to have it all in one package. So,
yeah.
All right. I think that's it for this week. I think. Greg,
yes.
What's our music?
Well, we had the news before we started recording this week that the long-promised / threatened, depending on one's point of view, release for the GameCube part of the Nintendo Switch Online of Super Mario Sunshine is finally going to be upon us about 2 weeks from when we're recording. Obviously, it'll be a bit less by the time anyone hears this. But yet again, they announced this right at the beginning, when obviously they had the first few games with Wind Waker and Soul Calibur, and F-Zero right at the start. And you thought, oh, well, it's, Switch 2 is going to launch in June. probably, yeah, might well be sometime in August of 2025. But for some reason, a year later, after, the Mario Palooza that was all leading up to the movie, and then a little bit after the movie, I guess, is largely over, really, and we're building up for Zelda Palooza, aren't we? With the Ocarina remake and the movie for that coming next year. But here it is. Super Mario Sunshine is coming now. So I thought, well, let's honour something, because we've said pretty much everything there is to say about that game. I think when we did the retroactive 9 years ago. It's terrifying that it was that long ago, but it was. It was right. I think it was an August thing, I want to say, from 9 years ago, that we tackled that. And at that time, I did one of the episodes associated with that. We used the Sky and Sea theme, which you might recognise as the super chill music that accompanies entirely not chill experiences like the Sandbird thing and the Pachinko machine. Now, what's happened 9 years later is that Mario Kart World has come along, and it has loads of rearrangements of all sorts of things, right? I mean, the soundtrack is vast. They've been sort of putting it on Nintendo Music in little parcels based on, which parts of the franchise or specific games, are being rearranged. Now, there's only like a handful, I think, of Sunshine tracks, not that surprisingly, right? Because it's not one of the more popular or sort of celebrated entries in the series. But, they've got some and they're all kind of interesting. But yeah, Sky and Sea gets revisited, and it's very different, right? Because it goes from being that sort of very slow, chilled out thing that was, of dubiously appropriate for the actual sort of levels that you don't have to use it on, to this is very up tempo, like very hyperactive, sort of electronic beats, electric guitar, like very, just completely transformed it. So yeah, I think it's kind of fun to look at how, in some cases Mario Kart World treatments are like, let's make something just kind of richer, than it originally was, if it was like a chiptune thing or whatever. In this case, it's just like really, really different and really hyperactive. And again, not a shock for a racing game principally, but they do have some more chilled out stuff for the free roam and whatnot. Yeah, this might be, one of the better things to come out of, if you've not heard this in the vastness of the Mario Kart World soundtrack, might be one of the better things to come out of Sunshine being made available again, even though I still have a lot of fond memories of playing it, but again, we covered it 9 years ago.
Cool. All right. Administrative stuff, as always, send emails to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. That is rfn@nintendoworld.com. And either next week or the week after, keep playing through Sonic Mania, because we will have a retroactive. And I think that is about it.
Keep collecting those blue balls. Sorry, blue spheres. I apologize.
Yes, true words never spoken. All right, on that note, that wraps us up for this week, so we will see y'all next week. Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.